On today's program, we got two World Series games we got to talk about. Reaction to Game 1 and Game 2. Standalone segments on Shohei Ohtani and his shoulder, and then Aaron Judge and his postseason struggles. And then we'll give you a quick preview of Game 3 tonight. It is the Just Baseball Show on Monday, October 28th. Jack and Aram. As always, it is presented by our friends at BetMGM. And of course, they have something new for the postseason. You've been hearing about it all month. BetMGM Sportsbook account holders who opt into the bullpen jackpot promotion and place a straight bet of at least $10 on their choice of any MLB player to hit a home run will win a share of a daily $50,000 BetMGM bullpen jackpot if the player they wagered on hits a home run that lands in a bullpen. Pricing will be paid out in bonus bets that expire in 7 days. The offer will be available every day throughout the postseason, and customers will need to place a $10 or more wager on any MLB player to hit a home run. If the player hits a home run that lands in that bullpen on that day, they win a share of the $50,000 daily prize. Make sure to use code JUSTBASEBALL, all caps, one word, for that first bet offer up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your wager loses to get started. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Must be 21 years or older. Terms and conditions apply. I hate to be a hater right away, but isn't this so much better than D-backs Rangers? Like,
I
this
was
is
thinking about that.
so much
Well,
better.
first, before we say that, I do have a question. I'm supposed to go to games 4 and 5.
Yeah.
How concerned should I be that I only go to one game?
Somewhat. I it's funny. Oh, this game tonight really matters. Game 3 really matters, but it does, man. Schmidt, Bueller, I think you should be pretty concerned that you only get one game.
Silver lining is then if I get one game, I see a historic sweep
Yeah.
on Yankees turf, which would be it.
It would
I
be
wouldn't
funny.
I wouldn't fan the fire, but I would soak in the smoke. I would love to just look around and just see the frustration and anger there.
Right.
I don't. It's not like the Cartman Scott Tenorman tears thing. I don't have anything against Yankees fans to
Yeah.
that degree, but the 27 rings, man, come up a little short. I in that fashion would be interesting to watch, but I
Yeah.
personally want this to go the way that we had expected going into this, which was an inevitable slugfest of 6 to 7 games. All three of us predicted 7, but I just, as we can see, it can get away from you quick with how good this Dodgers team is, and it really all does ride on game 3. Of course, you can get one back in 4, and that would probably be the gentleman's one to get back, right? A bullpen game
Yeah.
where at that point, then the Dodgers don't need to empty the tank on their top dogs if you're up 3-zip.
And Trinan would have thrown what 60, 70 pitches over the first three
Yeah, so
games.
you'd give him an extra day or
Yeah.
or whatever, however you want to go about that when you cross that bridge. But um the flip side is it goes back to New York, and we're going to talk about the games and everything, but
Yeah.
and then the Yankees could get hot and grab 2 right back. So that's the beautiful thing about this. But through the first 2 games, it doesn't. It feels like that's a very tall task, which is usually how it goes when a really good team is playing at a really high level, like the Dodgers are.
Having said that, we saw the Dodgers exchange boat races for 6 games with New York. We haven't seen that yet. You say it gets away from you quickly. Neither of these games have really gotten away from the New York Yankees. They had a threat late in both of them.
Yeah, yeah.
So
That is a thing too. That is a good point. And it wasn't a threat against whoever the heck they had left in the bullpen to throw out there. It was a threat against Blake Trinan, and they were right there. I mean, they had
right.
an opportunity to even things up. The difference is big spot in the bottom of the 10th in
Yep.
game 1. Dodgers came up big there, so I know it wasn't as big of a deficit or anything like that, but that is kind of the difference here. So I'm glad you brought that up, because even in game 2 where they look flat, they did fight back at the end. It was just kind of too
Yeah.
little, too late.
At the
So
end of the day, the one pitch that Vesia threw was an important pitch at the end of
yeah,
that game.
yeah, and I mean, but they put some good wood on it. And I have a whole conversation about that whole side of things, because I think there's
Yeah.
some interesting aspects of that spot and how the roster decisions, may have had some implications in that one spot there.
Hmm.
But yeah, I mean, I guess my question would be, would you say that this has been a lopsided, well, a 2-0 is naturally going to be lopsided. Would this be more or less lopsided than the 2-0 would suggest?
Less, much
I
less.
I think less, yeah.
This feels like a if you're stat watching, it's been all Dodgers. If you're game watching, I think you have like game one. I thought the Yankees were taking it. I really did believe
If they
it, and
played better defense, I think they do.
yeah, I think so. And like, hey, if they turn to somebody else, obviously we'll get into that conversation here in a moment. We might as well just get into game one now, and I'm gonna start each of these game recaps by doing something a little bit different. Fox Public Relations is putting out like snapshots of viewership and how that's tracking. And these are really encouraging numbers for Major League Baseball. So before I give you the rundown of what happened in the game, I'm going to give you the numbers that Fox PR just spit out. Game one had 15.2 million viewers on average. Peak audience was 17.8 from 11:30 p.m. Eastern until the conclusion of the game when Freddie Freeman hit that walk-off grand slam. It was the most watched World Series game one since 2017 when Astros Dodgers had 15.328. It was up 62% versus last year's World Series game one. Local markets, New York had a market share of 13.2, LA of 19.1. Those are both very, very good. It was the most watched Fox telecast in Friday primetime since 2017's World Series Game 3. So no Friday night college football that Fox has carried has come close to this number of 15.2. Here's what happened in the game. 6-3 Dodgers in 10. It was the Freddie game. Both starters were really on. Garrett Cole, 6 innings plus, 1 run, 4 Ks, no walks. Jack Flaherty, 5 1/3, 2 runs, 6 Ks. Only run against Garrett Cole opened scoring in the bottom of the fifth. Kike Hernandez tripled. Will Smith brought him home with a sac fly. Half inning later, Juan Soto ripped a single up the gut. Giancarlo Stanton followed with a 412-foot homer to left that left the bat at 116.6 miles an hour. Dodgers tied the game in the bottom of the eighth. Shohei ripped a Tommy Kahnle changeup off the wall and right. He knew that shit was coming. I'm going to get to that in a moment. Pushed to third on a throwing error, and then scored on a Mookie Betts sac fly. Scoreless ninth featured a good old-fashioned fan interference on a Gleyber Torres double, and Aaron Judge popped out in a high-pressure situation. Top of the 10th, Yanks scratched one across when Jazz singled, stole second, stole third, scored on a ground ball to Tommy Edman from Anthony Volpe in a fielder's choice. 3-2 Yankee lead going into the bottom of the 10th. Jake Cousins opened the inning. Will Smith flied out. Gavin Lux walked. Tommy Edman singled. Then Nestor Cortez came in for the first time since September 18th because of an elbow flexor strain. First pitch he threw was 98 down the heart of the plate. Shohei Ohtani popped out in foul ground on a great play by Alex
Or
Verdugo, who went over the railing.
92.6.
92.4 on the Ohtani pop out and then 92.6 on the Freddie grand slam, right?
Okay. Yeah, yeah. I think you
So,
said 98, or am I
oh,
am
did
I
I?
hearing?
I
Yeah.
sorry, yeah,
I,
92.
he
92 down
came
the
back
heart of the plate.
and throwing like a different, if Nestor Cortez was throwing 98, not only I think does he shut that down
Right.
in with ease, he probably is the best pitcher in Major League Baseball with his fastball
No
characteristics.
doubt. No doubt. But yes, it was 92 right down the dick. Ohtani popped out in foul ground. Nice play by Verdugo. Yankees intentionally walk the right-handed bat and Mookie Betts get left on left with Freddie Freeman. Those numbers were pretty well documented. Freddie has been very, very good over his last however many plate appearances against left-handed pitching with the bases loaded. First pitch to Freddie, 92 lower inside corner that Freeman ripped 109 miles an hour, 409 feet out to right field for the first walk-off grand slam in World Series history. We're going to go kind of bit by bit through that summary. I will say we could not have asked for a better game to kick this thing off.
Oh my gosh, that's one of the best one of the best baseball games I've seen in a while because you got everything and like the read we had I think was Peter and I had going into game one was like totally wrong where Peter was very sure that Flaherty wasn't going to throw well. I agreed.
Yep.
I thought it was going to be a tough one for Flaherty too, and I think we both kind of agreed that Cole was even going to get got at a certain point as well, and maybe like cruise through the first time, but you know second or third time through get hit around a little bit. And I think, I was thinking it would be 3-3 or something like that through the first five. Both guys were awesome. And I think with Flaherty, we're kind of speculating, is it fatigue at the end of the year? What might it be? It might be the fatigue thing, but whatever it was, he got back into diving into the mechanics, clean some things up. And, I think sometimes fatigue, your mechanics can go awry a little bit late in the year. It could be
Yeah.
such a small thing. Got himself back right. And once we saw that he was throwing more 94s, once you're seeing more 94s out there consistently, that's always going to be a great sign for a guy like Flaherty. That's exactly what it was. Cole was awesome as well, though. So it was cool to see both those guys throw well. And it still ended up turning into, as it always will, a battle of the bullpens. And when that does happen, though, it ends up skewing back to favoring the Dodgers. So
Yeah.
I do feel like in those kind of matchups when both guys are throwing, it is worth wondering if the Yankees should try to get an extra inning if they can from out of Garrett Cole, because you got to try to sway that bullpen advantage some.
They were like, and Cousins is part of the ammo. I don't want to say that they were out of ammo in the 10th inning, but you would have liked to see Weaver come on in the ninth and, like, I don't know, stretch out, you know, like Holmes a little bit more, I guess. I'm not going to say Canely because I kind of have a bone to pick with the whole Canely thing in a moment. But I do kind of want to go like piece by piece through this, because the first true big moment of this game, because it was a pitcher's duel through the front half, was playoff G. And Giancarlo Stanton at this point in the postseason has played 11 games. He has 6 home runs. In 38 career postseason games, all of which coming with the New York Yankees, he has 17 home runs in 38 games. A
Yeah,
career 1004 OPS in the postseason. He has a 1098 OPS this postseason in 48 plate appearances, and that ball was mutilated.
that was that was one of the more ridiculous swings I've seen in a while. It is incredible to see, and I think it really is a huge difference with a guy like Giancarlo because it's I think 162. The main focus, unfortunately, at this point is just how do I stay on the field,
Yeah.
and now it's how do I help us win a freaking baseball game. So he's able to empty the tank a little bit more, whether it be the swings, whether it just be kind of trusting that hey, it's almost over, like I can cut loose and not like I feel like sometimes you can see him just kind of playing up tight and just trying to preserve that body. So seeing him cut loose and just play free and play like prime Stanton is really fun to see. And it might not totally be prime Stanton because he's really swinging for the fences and it's kind of home runs or nothing. But man, they'll take him right now. And it was one of those situations too where it's like Flaherty was cruising, and getting your third look at him. Big G took advantage of it, sat on a curveball. He was ready for that pitch. And when a guy's locked in like that, if they're sitting on the pitch and they get it and it's not perfectly located, I'm going to hit it out. And that's exactly what Big G did.
Okay, so takes me to the next point because the Dodgers evened on the Ohtani double. He pushed to third on an error, and then he scores on a sac fly. Tommy Kahnle threw how many? His last pitch was a changeup that was ripped 114 miles an hour off the top of the wall from Shohei Ohtani. I think it was 50 something consecutive changeups in the postseason. And you look at his pitch log, like just the pitches that he has thrown in the postseason. Scroll for a while, four seamer. Scroll for a while, four seamer. I understand that the pitch is good. And I understand that you can ride that, like Lance McCullers with the breaking ball. Yeah, I remember that World Series start that he made. But you're facing some of the best hitters on the planet. I get if you're just heavy dose of changeups to Gavin Lux. Shohei Ohtani, if he knows that a changeup is coming from a right-handed pitcher, and frankly, with the information that we have now that we did not have in 2017 when McCullers ripped off that many consecutive breaking balls, you can start to get a feel for a Tommy Kahnle changeup. It's quirky, it's fun, whatever it is. It's not going to work against the LA Dodgers. I hate this pattern from Kahnle, to be totally honest with you.
It doesn't really make sense in the underlying data. I know he's had some like decent, some good outings overall. Like I know he's been really solid in the postseason, but the longer you do that, and I get it. Like up to that point, he hadn't given up an earned run, and that still it wasn't even an earned run. But I do think you bring up a good point for the rest of the series. It may have been kind of one of those. Well, it's been working up to this point. I'm going to keep doing it,
Yeah.
but just for comparison here, in the postseason, he's thrown his fastball, he's thrown 124 pitches and 112 of them have been changeups. And then you talk about the 50 consecutive. So the last three outings, he hasn't thrown a fastball.
So
It's
that's the thing. Like I
52 changeups, zero fastballs. Just for reference, to the regular season, he was throwing the fastball 23% of the time. That is like a perfect amount of time, every fourth pitch, right? Where the hitter has it in the back of his head, is like, oh shit, fastball might be coming this time. But once that number gets below 10%, I'm eliminating it from my mind.
but
I don't care anymore because
so
I have 9 out of 10 shots to hit that changeup.
so to further that point, I even think like, okay, you take the first what 70 pitch sample of his postseason uh, stint at this point. You take the first 70 pitch sample. 60 of the 70 pitches were change or were fastballs or changeups. Yes, 60 of the first 70 were changeups. So you know that you're getting it one out of every seven or something. Okay. Even to the point of under 10%, there's a difference between throwing 50 pitches and 47 of them being changeups and 50 pitches and 50 of them being changeups.
Yeah, zero
Like,
fastballs.
yeah, there's a difference, I think, between four and zero in a 50 pitch sample. I think there's a difference between two and zero in a 50
Yeah,
pitch
I just
sample.
think once you get to single digits, I'm eliminating it
Yeah.
pretty much. But I agree with you. Like, there's a big difference when you are feeling quite confident that it's not coming.
Right. You
Um,
know what's coming. It's not, I have a very firm belief, like a 95% belief that a changeup is coming versus you're not throwing me anything but a changeup. I can say that with 100% certainty.
no, I agree. I do think that it's a little weird, especially when you know it. It just has to be mixed in a little bit,
Yeah.
and being that the usage was what it was through the regular season, I always think it's weird to pick this spot to totally you know adjust that. The other weird thing about it is, the fastball actually, in the amount that he has used it, is like performed pretty well in spots, but I get that like it's not a great heater, so he probably doesn't trust it. And the command of the heater isn't very good. So I think that's part of it too, which like but the thing that's surprising to me is when he was even throwing it 10% of the time or 11% of the time in the early parts of the postseason, like it performed well then, and then he just scrapped it completely.
Yep.
And, I get it again. When it was 20% of the time, it wasn't performing quite as well, but
Yeah.
I think you got to live and die by what you did in the regular season. I don't think you can just say, like, okay, well, this is my best pitch. Let me go all in on that. But
Right.
I mean, it was working to that point. So I guess that's where it's hard to say anything. I'll be interested to see how he comes out next time around and
Hmm.
if it's still all change ups again.
Because again, like, dude, the last changeup he threw was 114 miles an hour off the top of the wall. I'd be a
Yeah.
little gun shy there too, especially if I match up with, one of their big lefties, like a Freddie Freeman, like a Shohei Ohtani.
Hmm.
Fast forward to the top of the 10th. Jazz Chisholm singles, swipes second, swipes third. To the point of the stolen base, what's the point in even playing the series anymore if we're not going to get the Taco Bell steal a base, steal a taco promotion? I like, what are we doing here?
You think they tapped the budget out this year? They just couldn't do it?
Well, the thing is, like, we weren't aware in the CS. I had a couple good listeners tag me in a reply to the tweet notifying us right before game one that the Steal a Base, Steal a Taco promotion was not going to be in effect. So they didn't even make an announcement that it was not going to be in effect. I would have just gone to my local Taco Bell. It's like, hey, I watched Jazz steal second the other day. Give me the
They're gonna say,
taco.
what the hell are you talking about?
It's just a shame. It's just a shame that like marketing dropped the ball that bad. But um Jazz in game one felt like he was stirring the drink for the New York Yankees a little bit.
Oh,
Obviously, the big swing from Giancarlo, but that 10th inning, that was like, okay, get on my back. Let's go.
I mean, he created that run himself.
Yeah.
But not only that, made a big play at third. I mean, he was huge in that ball game. And we talked about it. Like the thing I said on the episode with Peter is my concern between the two lineups is, and I think we actually said that on the series preview, is just like it can get really thin quick when you're looking at Rizzo, Volpe, Wells, Verdugo in the back of that lineup compared to what the Dodgers have. And the big X factor, I think, is the guy in between, the top and that back four, which is Jazz, because I don't need to convince you anything about Soto. I know Judge has been really bad. We're gonna get into that, but he's still Aaron Judge. I can't say I'm concerned about him until they lose. And
Right.
obviously we're concerned about him now, but going into the World Series can't be like, oh, Judge is a problem for them. Like, you just got to ride the wave and see what happens. And then Giancarlo is obviously great. So Jazz was the X factor for me, outside of the obvious of, yes, you need the best hitter outside of Ohtani in Major League Baseball to hit. I think that was the clear X factor because of the things that he can do. It's not just that he can ascend to, an all-star level hitter when he's locked in. It's that he can create and wreak havoc for, a team that doesn't really have guys that can do that aside from Anthony Volpe and his ability to steal bags and kind of wreak havoc on the base paths. Who else is doing that for you? I don't think anybody can. So I think we saw the value of Jazz there, and he almost single-handedly got them across the finish line to win that ball game if they could have held on. But it's going to have to be more of that, because especially with Judge potentially struggling,
Yeah.
they're going to need to manufacture some runs here and there to be able to keep up.
Overall World Series preview that we did last Thursday, I mentioned the middle ground of each bowl or of each lineup, where you have the clear top end talent, you have the bottom talent, and the guys that settle in the middle feel like they could be the difference. And the guys that you can ID in that clump for the Dodgers are a Will Smith and a Max Muncy. I think Jazz is like firmly in that middle clump for the New York Yankees. He's probably the closest thing to the liaison between the top superstars and the bottom of that lineup. And if he is elevating closer to that top echelon, the
Yep.
Yankees are in a good spot when they get
Yep.
back to New York. And it seems like he is willing to get there.
It seems like he's feeling good. And again, it's just the way he does it too, right? Where he can go deep and he can slug for you, but it's also the fact that he can, beat out a ground ball and then steal second and third. So
Yeah.
they just need that.
Yeah. Bottom of the 10th, Cousins runs into his issues. They're going to turn to a lefty to see Ohtani and Freeman. It was a foregone conclusion that they were going to walk Mookie Betts if the situation allowed them to, because you had a lefty that was going to face the two lefties. It was going to be Tim Hill or it was going to be Nestor Cortez. So, putting it plainly, did they make the right decision?
You know, I think everybody can come on and
Armchair
I like I
quarterback this
talked
thing.
about in
Yeah.
the preview, Monday morning quarterback this thing and
Yeah.
say, oh, well, it didn't work, so I wouldn't have done it. I understand the logic there. I mean, Mookie also, it's pick your poison with the MVPs here,
Mm-hmm.
really. But what was interesting was, Mookie, I think, was hitless in that game. Freeman, I think, was one. He had that the triple or whatever they ended up
Yeah.
ruling it. Yeah, they
It was
ruled
a
it a triple. So
triple.
he had the triple, and was looking a little bit more comfortable. The interesting wrinkle to me, and like, again, I'm not going to say if it was a right or wrong decision. I just the numbers on it, and I can just leave it up to everybody else's interpretation. Again, I think the bigger question would just be, do you go to Nestor in that spot versus the intentional walk? I think the conversation about Nestor, who hasn't pitched in a month plus,
Yeah,
coming into a situation like that, and he's a warrior, and I respect the hell out of him for wanting to do that and being
for
ready to
sure.
do that. And I mean, he got Ohtani out, right? But it's a pretty impossible spot to be in. It's more catastrophic because of the grand slam. Like, if
Right.
Freeman pokes a single, in the gap or whatever, and they walk it off, are we talking about it? Is that more catastrophic, or is it that catastrophic of a loss? I don't know. I think that the grand slam definitely made it hit home a little bit
Right.
harder.
And the fact that it was a no doubter too, like it was
Yeah, like
109 and Freddie could pimp it the
it
way he did.
it
Like,
just wasn't a good location. It made
yeah,
it look like it was like an epically wrong decision. Whereas,
yeah,
Freeman could have also just smacked one in the gap. And how are we talking
game
about it?
over.
Maybe it's
Yeah.
the same, maybe it's not. I don't know. So the numbers that are interesting though is like Mookie against left-handed pitching, like it hasn't been as dominant as I would have thought since, like, if you look at since September 1, which is 60 plate appearances, it's a 742 OPS. And that's including the postseason. But then if you go to just like the regular season, like, I get it. The numbers were really freaking good. So I mean, that was probably a big part of this being factored in, right? In the regular season, it was 308, 377, 476.
Yeah.
That's over the course of the entire regular season against left-handed pitching. But if you go from September 1 onwards through this postseason, it's a 742 OPS, it's a 255 batting average. It's Mookie freaking Betts. So he's going to be in that spot, and he's probably going to feel pretty good and could find the barrel and could have done the same thing too. So I don't have too much issue with the decision. The only other thing I'll add to it though is like, Freddie Freeman's a guy that kind of hits everybody. And if you do the same thing from like September 1, and I know it's not going to be as many ABs, but if you go from September 1 for Freddie against lefties, it's 57 plate appearances. He has a 922 OPS against left-handed pitching. And if you go through the regular season against left-handed pitching, I see the more stark splits there, where then he has a 762 OPS, where against righties it was 904. So I think, rather than the short-term trends, I think Boone was playing the macro stats and the longer story that we have in the larger sample. And
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think I can blame him for that. And if Nestor executes the pitch a little bit better, I think there's a very real scenario where Freddie could pop up just like Ohtani, and we're not having this conversation. So, it just, I think it's more of a, well, no shit. The guy who hasn't thrown in 5 weeks didn't execute that
Right.
great.
So
On like his
that's
second pitch.
that's the
That's the thing to
follow up.
me that's more fascinating. It's like, you put a guy in a spot where he has to execute. The bases are loaded. He has to hit a spot, and
Right.
like he isn't pitched. Like that to me is the crazier part.
That was going to be my follow up because like Boone was not going to turn to a right handed pitcher here anywhere. Like he was
They could have
going
went
to
to
go
what,
to
Tim Hill? Wasn't Tim Hill still available?
Hill was there, and Hill's a lefty. So it would have been lefty Nestor or lefty Tim Hill. And your option essentially is the guy that has not thrown in 5 weeks or the guy that like is a contact machine. He's carrying less than 4 hitters per 9 innings. So I ask you, like, you know, splits aside because that was going to be accounted for. Would you rather go to the guy that, tends to get a lot of contact on the ground but has been successful, or the guy that has been really successful in spurts for you and is a big reason why you have built your organization to a place where they can be in the World Series, but he hasn't thrown in 5 weeks because he's dealing with a flexor strain?
I mean, I think the answer was clear there. And that was one where like that was not the benefit of hindsight. Immediately was like, oh, I think I would have went to Tim Hill there because I understand that you wanted the K. I get it.
Mm-hmm.
In my opinion, that ship sailed. Where it's like, yeah, you want to win that freaking ball game. Yeah, yes, of course. But it's not like Nestor Cortez is this lights out like 30% strikeout rate guy.
No, it's not
The
like he's
problem,
Vesia. If he was Vesia, I totally
I
get it.
totally get it, right? If he's a high K guy, I get it. But I think at that point, you just want to get out of that inning and extend this ball game, right? And just not lose. Because Tim Hill, like, I get it, he's not going to strike guys out. That's the thing. But he's going to get a ridiculously high ground ball rate. And there's a good chance that he gets you out of that thing with a couple ground balls or whatever it may be. And
Mhm.
also, lefties have a 617 OPS against him. He's very funky and uncomfortable. And I like your chances of not getting burned with him there, right? Like a lefties had 147 plate appearances against Tim Hill this season and did not hit a single home run. He allowed 2 home runs total this year. He allowed 7 extra base hits total this year. So like, but again, I get it because like a single, you could lose the game there, and that's why I think they wanted to go to a guy that has a little bit higher of a chance of getting a double
Okay.
play.
Yeah.
But I would have potentially thought of, and again, this is not the Monday morning quarterback thing. I just think it's a fun discussion of the different ways that you can approach a situation in baseball. And at the end of the day, that all comes down to, however, it does. You can't fully gauge the decision because it comes down to the execution. Tim Hill could have came in and floated one in there, grand slam, and my idea is stupid too.
Right.
So like it doesn't. I'm not doing it from that perspective. But with a guy that has a 71% ground ball rate against lefties, you could have brought an extra infielder in and you could have just hoped that it stays on the ground.
Is that allowed or is that banned now with the new shift rules?
Yeah, is it fully banned? Can you not do anything with
I
that
think it's
now?
probably fully banned. I don't know if we've seen five infielders yet with
Yeah,
the new
I
shift
was
rules.
wondering that if you like can't do it at all now, but let me see. That's a great question. But regardless, I mean, this is a spot where I'd feel confident in his ability to get a weak flare on the ground or whatever it may be. Like, I mean, again, not a single home run and only 6 extra base hits by left-handed hitters and only 9 extra base hits total off of Tim Hill this season. So, but again, they put Nestor on the roster for him to pitch in a big spot because we'll talk about it when we get to the game two recap. Like,
Yeah.
I think that John Birdie could have been used off of that bench,
Yeah.
and that was probably a tough decision to leave him off. But
Yeah.
if Nestor's going to be on that roster, like he's got to pitch in big spots. And so I get it from that perspective. But also, just one more thing, Tim Hill's last 30 appearances, that's including the postseason, 1 extra base hit off of
Yeah.
him. So, like, I just feel like you had a good chance not to lose there.
Yeah. And it feels like you went to a guy that, yeah, like has done a ton for the New York Yankees over the last, 3, 4 years. And Nestor Cortez is a huge piece of the New York Yankees. But it, as simply put as I can, uh, it felt like a matter of healthy versus unhealthy here, and they went to the unhealthy guy. And I was like, oh, I don't love this, and it immediately backfired, unfortunately. I don't have any analysis on the Freddie Freeman Grand Slam. I feel like the moment has been pretty well documented. I will just say, what a moment for him, and like everything that he's gone through and his family have gone through
Oh
this
my
year.
gosh. Going
It
straight to
could,
his pops too. Yeah, that
yeah,
that was
like it
awesome.
could not have happened to a guy in a better situation here. Like, Mookie, A, it's great, but like this has been a very tough year for Freddie with all the family stuff going on as well. So, like, I thought it was great that he was the one that delivered in that moment and has that moment that's going to live forever. That is one of the all-time World Series home runs that we have.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I mean, and iconic, and I mean the way that he pimped it too.
Yeah, cold.
But and him also just being hurt, really, like his ankle is obviously still bothering him,
The
and
Gibby
to
meet Freddie call was
yeah,
awesome.
absolutely awesome. And you can have an extra infielder, I'm pretty sure. So that is the interesting wrinkle in the thing too. But surprised we don't see it more, given that. But I mean, yeah, that absolutely iconic home run that I mean that's one of those where you'll see it played over and over and over again in the playoff commercials moving forward, and as it should be. But yeah, it was cool to see the raw emotion from Reddy, see him going straight to his father like that, and then
Yeah.
Albie's on the field to hug him after. I guess
Right.
Albie's is doing some like social media stuff,
He's
like
MLB's like social media correspondent or
yeah,
something.
like,
Yeah.
all right, okay. But that was really awesome. And I mean, again, like you said before, what else could you want out of a game one? I got so many texts from my friends who like are casual baseball
Yeah.
fans, like this must be exactly what you wanted. I'm like, yes, it
Yeah.
was.
Bingo.
Yes, it has been.
I,
So, that is why I'm hoping that, we get a little bit of a punch back from the Yanks in these next two.
I got a lot of texts about a certain moment in game two that we're going to get to in a moment. Before that, our first break. Game two was another Dodger win, 4-2. I'm going to give you the rundown of, the play by play, all the scoring summary in a moment. I do want to give you the TV numbers again because game two, you think after game one, all right, we're going to have some hangover, right? It was 15.2. Last year, D backs Rangers averaged about 9.5. Game
Yeah.
two had 13.8 million viewers. Through two games, the 2024 World Series across all networks is averaging 14.545 million viewers, which is the best start since 2017, that Dodgers Astros series. 13.4 were locked in to game two. On average, that was the best game two number since 2018 when it was Dodgers Red Sox. Peak audience 16.35 million from 11 p.m. Eastern until the conclusion. That was the whole Ohtani thing. Up 65% on Fox compared to 2023. Local markets is 17.3. Market share in LA, 10.3 in New York. In terms of the game breakdown, again, 4-2 Dodgers. This one a bit more cut and dry. Tommy Edman got to Carlos Rodon to open scoring in the second. He wrapped a solo homer around the left field foul pole to open scoring, but Juan Soto responded with his own solo shot a half inning later, turned 95 around and shot it into the right field bullpen. Your promo hit.
Yeah.
And in the bottom of the inning, Teoscar Hernandez got 98 elevated, and he celebrated with a 108-mile-an-hour shot out to right center for a two-run blast. Freddie Freeman followed him. Another tank, making it back-to-back blasts and a 4-1 lead. Scoring halted until the ninth from the bottom of the third. Giancarlo Stanton brought in Juan Soto with an RBI single off Blake Trinan. There was a jam But Alex Vesia came on for the third one pitch save in postseason history. Him, Jason Isringhausen in the 2004 NLCS, and Bob Welch in the 1981 NLCS. Thank you, Nugget Chef on Twitter. Good story here was Yoshinobu Yamamoto, who worked 6 1/3 innings of one hit, 1 run ball. Only damage came on the Soto homer. Yamamoto K'd 4, walked 2, delivered his best start since he saw the Yankees in New York on June 7th. Bad story here with Shohei Ohtani leaving with injury after a caught stealing, which we will discuss in a moment. Do want to talk about this game as a whole. Rodon got clipped 3 times in 3 1/3 innings. Aside from Freddie, was 2 right-handed bats. I know that we talked about this a little bit earlier in the postseason. Based on the TV, like camera angle, based on the center field cam we get, it seems pretty darn easy for right-handed hitters to pick up Rodon. And I'm not saying that like any jabroni team could do it, but like Teoscar Hernandez, I feel like that guy can get to Carlos Rodon. He does feel like a cut and dry splits guy.
Yeah, and it was if you look at the pitch locations, like and the count situations, right, where you have count leverage for Tommy Edman, 2-0 count, fastball on the inner half. I mean, he's cheating for it, and he got it. I think it was probably 3 balls lower than they wanted it. I think they wanted it a little bit. I think Wells wanted it a little bit higher up to tie him up. Instead, it's middle and then middle height and then on the inner half. And you know that 2-0 against Rodon, you can cheat for that, especially as a right-handed hitter. You look at the Teoscar home run, right? It wasn't a bad pitch, but it's 1-0. And the target there, I think it wasn't far off from the target, but to your point with like how righties can see it a little bit better, I think there's even more importance on where he locates it, and it kind of bled back over the middle of the plate. If we're
Yeah.
talking about like east-west location, it was top of the zone, but bleeds back over the middle of it a little bit more. I think he probably wanted a little bit more of away. And 1-0, Teoscar was sitting dead red heater and was able to get that one. The Freddie pitch, I just chalked that up to a really good Freddie Freeman swing. 3-2 fastball. It's up and in. But again, I think another spot where 3-2, if I'm the cleanup hitter, I'm sitting fastball, and if he spots a slider, I'll tip my cap. And Freddie was clearly sitting fastball. He got that head out way too easily. So to me, on 97 like that, like he was sitting fastball. So it just seemed like the Dodgers were really prepared, and pretty much in any advantage count. And 3-2 against Freddie Freeman, I'll consider an advantage count.
Yeah.
They were sitting fastball and they weren't missing them.
How about Tommy Edman? It's what? It's 5 consecutive multi-hit games in the postseason. He's on this like out of body tear right now, and it's exactly what the doctor ordered for the LA Dodgers. And good for Tommy Edman, man. Missing pretty much the entirety of the season. He was acquired at the deadline. We had no idea how available he was going to be. And now he's turned into the NLCS MVP and one of the stars of this World Series to this point. He does it in a different way. I think when you look at the Dodger lineup, you think homers with Ohtani, you're thinking big homers in the World Series with Freddie Freeman right now. You're thinking power potential with Amoki, and you're thinking power potential with a Teoscar Hernandez and with a Will Smith. But this is the table setter that like the Dodgers could really use in this lineup, and they found him in October.
It's been amazing. And the fact that he's packing a little bit of a punch now too, but
Yeah.
I mean it has been mostly what feels like those like doubles down the line. And I mean the defense, I know he's had a couple spots where he could have made a play or whatever, but overall the defense has been so fantastic. And what's amazing is, Miguel Rojas is healthy, and they like the way that the lineup kind of against the lefty lines up with Rojas in there.
Yep.
So you move Edmund to center field, and he can go play a high level center field. Like that is the thing that really, I think, unlocks so much more for this ball club. The fact that, you have this role player, but then he's also able to play defense at a high level at 2 premium positions that you really need. I think those are the 2 spots that, with the performance of James Outman this year, with the fact that Kevin Lux could not end up playing shortstop at all for them,
Nope.
like those are 2 spots that they've really needed folks to fill in. And Tommy Edmonds been able to do both of those, in the postseason and down the stretch there. And I mean, I don't think it can be overstated how valuable Tommy Edman has been to this team, whether he was lighting up the postseason or not. If he had a 750 OPS, but was doing the same things defensively, I'd say the same thing. So the fact that he's scorching offensively, I mean, only hammers it even harder.
So I was jealous of your Teoscar MVP shout after the 2-run homer, and then Freddie like just kind of furthered his lead as it stands right now, like
Yeah,
5, 6 pitches later. How much money is Teoscar Hernandez going to make this offseason?
it's a great question. I think he's going to get paid a good amount of money. I don't know what this market's going to look like,
Yeah.
but I have a better question, I guess, in terms of just like,
So my question was shitty,
no,
got it.
I realized
Yeah.
as I said that it was going to come out the
No,
wrong
your
way.
question
A
sucks.
more
I had a slight.
challenging like
Okay.
question, I guess. Who gets more money, Teoscar or Santander, like on an AAV basis?
I would pay Teoscar more money.
I agree. I believe in the slash line being more sustainable, and I think the OPS is about 31 points higher. Um, so if that's the case, he's probably making
He's
good
close
chunk
to
of
a
money
nine
per
figure
year.
player at this point.
Yeah, he very easily could be. He's 32. It's going to be interesting. And Edmund, you can have the same conversation. Not nine figures, but how much is he going to make? How much more is he making himself? Because say this guy is a couple years removed from being a 5-win player. We talk about how many teams could use center field. A lot of teams need center field help, and a lot of teams need shortstop help. You have a guy that could do both, and I mean can impact the game in a lot of ways. Switch hitter, and now looking healthy and impacting the game for baseball's best team right now and
Yeah.
in the big stage. Like I think he's going to make himself a nice little bag too. Where I compare to Ha-Sung Kim,
Yeah.
and that's going to be a guy that plenty of teams are going to want, even though he had a down offensive year. I would want Tommy Edman significantly more at this point. So it is a very interesting thing now, where a couple of these Dodgers guys I think are making themselves a nice bag.
Yeah. Wait, who would make more money on the open market right now? Because Edmund has one more year. Edmund or Teoscar Hernandez? Because I think it's funny because they have, it seems like similar value here and they couldn't look more different.
I
Probably
think
Teoscar.
Teoscar. I'd go Teoscar just because the wrist thing with Edmund, like I'm sure there'll be some minor, like concerns about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is a great question.
I did like your shout though. Essentially, Ha-Sung Kim add 15% to that, and that's Tommy Edmund.
And the Dodgers might just extend him this offseason
They probably
instead, right?
should at this
Probably
point.
should. But yeah, it's a really interesting conversation. Both those guys, the way they're playing. I mean, they're going to be making themselves more money in the next year or two
Yeah.
for Tommy Edmond. But I think the big story in this ball game too is the fact that we got a pitcher going into the seventh inning, and getting an out, a starting pitcher getting an out in the seventh inning.
And it was a guy that missed several months with a shoulder issue.
He looks like he's all the way back, right? Like I think that's pretty clear here. And Yoshinobu Yamamoto,
Yeah.
to go to do what he did, 6 1/3, one hit, and the one hit is a home run by Juan Soto that really was a pretty good pitch too.
Yeah.
It wasn't where it was set up. You don't want to go to down and in. You don't want to go down and in to Juan Soto. I get it, but it wasn't that bad of a pitch. It's pretty crazy that that's really the only damage that was done for him. I'm looking at it right now. It's probably a bad pitch, honestly. It's still, I mean, that's it, right? A home run to Juan Soto. That's the only damage. And the fact that he was able to take it that deep, and he could have went longer, right? I mean, it was
Mhm.
86 pitches. Like he was efficient as hell. That was really awesome to see. And I think the big difference here, that the big X factors we've talked about, and I will continue to stand by it, is that splitter. And I understand he only threw 11 of them, but 8 for a strike. I think when you have to respect the splitter, his fastball also becomes so much better and more effective. And it was for him in that game where he was able to get some whiffs and big spots with it.
Yeah.
But I mean, having that splitter, I think, just opens up everything. Where then the curveball, I think, is a different look, and guys aren't shutting that pitch down as easily. The cutter as well. It was really fun to watch him pitch like the guy that we saw, coming over here, and the guy that we saw when he was healthy, throwing at a high level before hitting the IL.
And it was so big for the Dodgers as well. Like, I know they turned to Treinen for what, 27, 28 pitches after he threw 27, 28 pitches the night before, but the fact that they could essentially shelf a Kopech and shelf like some of these other leverage arms that they have because they had a starting pitcher work into the seventh inning. I'm with you. It was almost jarring to see that guy work that long. If
It was
Cole
awesome.
threw into the seventh, I get it. And he did. He started the seventh, right? 6 innings plus for Cole. But if he like recorded an out in the seventh inning, it's like, oh yeah, obviously you're Garrett Cole. Hell, if Flaherty pitched to the seventh inning, be like, yeah, obviously, like you can do that. Like that's baseball. It's a real thing that happens in the regular season. We just don't see it in October much anymore. But the fact that it's Yamamoto and so much of the narrative around him was how heavily is he going to be guarded this postseason coming into October? And the fact that he got through in such quick work too. He got into the seventh inning on what, 84 pitches?
86 pitches.
86
Or yeah,
pitches.
I guess got into the seventh inning, excuse me, with less. He threw 86 total pitches.
So he probably got through six and 70 something.
You know the last time that he pitched into the seventh inning was?
Against New York, right? June 7th.
Yeah, against
Yeah.
New York, June 7. Pretty wild. So that is a cool wrinkle to this thing as well. One other thing, I know it was much lower leverage, but it does help the point. Tim Hill comes in and goes an inning in a third. He gets Freddie, and again, much lower leverage. It was the
Yeah.
bottom of the fifth. He gets Freddie Freeman to pop up to shortstop. He strikes out Tommy Edman. He gets Kike Hernandez to line out, and then he gets Max Muncy to pop up in foul territory.
Man.
So, like, it was a really impressive inning in the third from Hill, who got a lot of infield pop ups and weak contact. So, again, it was not the ninth, much different spot. I understand, but it just was funny that he first batter he gets his Freddie Freeman pops right up.
Dude. Yeah, I mean it helps the narrative, no doubt. This would line up for what, game six, if we got to six? I feel really good about Yamamoto in game six. How do you feel if you're Aaron Boone looking at Carlos Rodon as a probable in game six of this? Because I know he was not good against Kansas City, and then he was really good against Cleveland, and now he's been really not good against the Dodgers, and now he's got to see him again.
Like again, looking at the hits and everything, like almost all of them were in counts where he was behind. I think the only one that wasn't was he threw a fastball 0-2 to Edmund that was that went for a double
Okay.
in the bottom of the third with two outs. Where he just kind of tugged it back over the middle. It was they wanted it to be away, and it was down bottom of the zone but middle, and it was smacked for a line drive double. But I'm looking at like all six of the other hits were advantage counts for hitters. And I mean that's a tough that's to me that says more about him just kind of falling behind. And sorry, the one other one was Mookie Betts change up that just stayed up and kind
Yeah.
of fluttered, and even though it was a ball out, Mookie just saw it floating up and he smacked it the other way.
Yeah.
But I mean, you got to ride with Rodon, and at the very least, like I would be more concerned if Rodon was like executing his pitches here, and
Right.
they were hitting his best pitches. I honestly think he fell behind too often, and he also missed his spots when he did fall behind. So it just wasn't good. When
Yeah.
he is hitting his spots, we've seen it, like he's very good.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like I'm nervous that the same thing happens again, but at least I can look at it and say, hey, he didn't execute great. I got to hope that he executes great next time out.
Yeah.
So that gives me a little bit more optimism instead of just, hey, he was actually as good as we saw him last time out. Just these Dodgers bats are too good.
Yeah.
I think if Carlos Rodon is good enough to where if he's sequencing well and executing, he can keep this lineup at bay. But, I think it's very clear that he can't get away with as much as some other pitchers. And if he's falling behind, they're going to start jumping on him. And,
Yeah.
and that's exactly what happened.
My phone really started to get going after a slide in the seventh inning. Shohei Ohtani
Yeah.
was caught stealing, and he immediately called for Dave Robertson, the trainer. The all-time record set in terms of number of Twitter doctors yesterday. It's broken wrist, broken forearm. What his elbow is fucked. Then it turned out that it was his shoulder. Yeah, complete shoulder separation. He's out for a very long time. Let's wait until we get the medical diagnosis. We got the medical diagnosis. He got a shoulder subluxation.
Mm-hmm.
A shoulder subluxation, that's a hard word to say, is defined on Google AI as, quote, partial or incomplete dislocation of the glenohumeral joint or translation between the humeral head and glenoid fossa while the
What the
humeral head
hell?
is in contact with the glenoid fossa.
It's
Okay,
when it pops out and pops back in.
there you go.
There you go. That's
Partial dislocation. Roberts after the game on Saturday night. Dave Roberts said, quote, "We're going to get some tests at some point tonight, tomorrow, then we'll know more in the next couple of days. But the strength was great, the range of motion good, so we're encouraged."
so.
And yeah,
I was just gonna say, like, miserable shoulder guy over here. From
yeah,
what I understand about it, it's like if you dislocate it, it's important to pop your shoulder back in because the longer that your shoulder is out of place, the more you're going to stretch those tendons, ligaments, etc. And it can make it worse. Or when it fully dislocates, that often will mean that something ripped out, and that's why it's no longer in place. When it goes out and back in immediately, it's almost like that rubber band, right? Where it's like,
hmm
yeah, and then back in. That could still cause a lot of soreness and pain, but
yeah.
sometimes not that much because it's like, oh, it wasn't that bad. It went in and out. Clearly, it caused some pain for him, but I from what I understand about how these kind of things work, like I don't think there's a huge risk of like re-injury or anything like that. I think it's just a pain management thing for him.
Okay, fair. So
From what I understand, again, I'm not a
yeah,
doctor at all, but that's again from what I understand from it.
well, you have more of an understanding than again, like thousands of people on Twitter that are like, "No, he's screwed, broken wrist, done." Carl Ravitch on Sunday afternoon tweeted, "Dodgers manager Dave Roberts tells me Shohei Ohtani is quote in a great spot and will be playing in Game 3 tomorrow." Okay,
Yeah, I
so
mean,
we have our answer here. Pain management. If it is pain management, this guy was going to play. There's no doubt.
shoot him up with some stuff, and it's like it'll be like football. It'll battle through that thing, but yeah, I think the only risk is like having it sublex again, and I doubt he's going to be sliding with his arm down again.
Right.
I doubt he's going to be stealing much at all. I
Does
that
Can I ask you from like a swing perspective, does it help that it's his back shoulder and not his front shoulder?
It's a good question. I mean, I
Not
don't
really.
know. I don't know. I think you'd almost rather it be. He's a two-hand finisher. You can get. You remember with Tatis where his kept like he had a legit problem and then where he just kept popping out and they had to eventually get it fixed. Where he was like kind of finishing one hand and then the backswing it would like kind of get messed up for him.
But wasn't that his lead? That was his
It
lead
was his
shoulder.
lead
Like, so this
where
is
he was
Otani's
finishing.
trailing shoulder.
Yeah, but what's interesting is he's a two-hand finisher, so part of me thinks that he almost would have been better off if it was like because you really got to push with that top one. Like top one's doing a lot of work there, but I think with his swing and the way it's so uphill and everything, like I don't think it's too much of a problem. But I and you think about how far he puts his hands back, I think it would be more pressure on his front shoulder, if anything. So I think it is better for it to be that. And also just good it's a non-throwing shoulder.
Yeah.
Like what a shame it would be. He works back from Tommy John and then
And then
something on
this
the
happens.
base paths impacts his ability to pitch. So I think all in all it is a better situation.
You were making the point. Do you think we just saw the last 50 stolen base season from Shohei Ohtani?
I mean, I hope I'm not being too reactionary because I was thinking about it even during the season. The risk reward prop of
Yeah.
attempting 70 bags when you're the best player on the planet, I just like it's not a great risk reward prop. I think like it's not. So I do wonder if we're going to see him stealing as nearly as much next year. But that's a bridge we'll cross. I think when we get there. But thank goodness he's not hurt worse. I know to to the disappointment of the Billy's faithful there by Yankee Stadium. I don't know if you saw that video. Um,
Oh, yeah. Was that the bar where they were like cheering
yeah,
that
that's
Otani got
it's
hurt?
the famous Yankees bar right there by Yankee Stadium. And
Nice.
I mean, you got drunk idiots in a big moment there, probably saying stuff they don't mean to be edgy, but
Yeah.
that video was like, okay, all right, now let's draw a line there. You can even in your head be like, okay, we have a chance now, but like everyone's like cheering. I'm like, what the fuck? But again, that doesn't we talk about it all the time. That doesn't uh resemble a fan base at all
Yeah.
or anything like that. A bunch of drunk idiots at a bar, but that was a pretty wild video to see.
Okay, so good transition because a lot of drunk idiots have been saying a lot of things about the guy that we're going to talk about next. Before that, we will take one final break. Drunk or not, there are a lot of people, and it is not the entirety of the New York Yankees fan base, do not get it twisted, that are coming for Aaron Judge's head. And I'll give you the numbers on Judge as it stands right now. Aaron Judge, at this point, so far in the postseason, is 6 for 40 with 2 homers and 19 Ks in those 40 ABs in 11 postseason games this year. It's a 605 OPS. In
65% hard hit rate though.
oh, good. Um, in 2 games in the World Series, he's 1 for 9 with 6 Ks. Those 3 batted balls, what's the hard hit rate on those? 67%?
Yeah, probably. Let me see.
In his last 20 postseason games, he's
Yep,
11,
67%.
67. Yeah, 2 of them are hard hit. Nice.
Yeah.
In his last 20 postseason games, he's 11 for 76, which is 145. We're going to talk about the struggles. I don't really want to give like the hate oxygen for
No, I don't
45
either.
seconds. I don't think that's the right move. Certain people saying he should be booed on opening day next year,
Oh
and
my
it's a
God,
waste
get
of
the
money. And like it, listen, I've heard so much dumb shit as it pertains to Aaron Judge over the last 3 days. And frankly, I wanted to bring it up because I'm exhausted of it. And if you are a culprit of saying nasty, mean shit about Aaron Judge and you think that this is going to bleed over to the 2025 regular season, can you do me a favor and like either block me or just think about it and like try not to do that on
I,
social
I
media moving forward?
I think there's different approaches. I think you can say Aaron Judge is killing us right now.
Okay,
Valid.
that's fine.
Valid. He's hurting them pretty badly right now. There's
Saying
no
Aaron
doubt about it.
Yeah, but saying Aaron Judge is a POS is not the way to
Yeah.
go about this.
Or and like, if you're gonna like boo him or whatever, like clearly there's a mental barrier right now in the postseason. Like, and that's the thing too. It's like if anything, I think fans should be doing like the Trey Turner standing O thing, reminding him that he is, which by the way, the fact that they made like a documentary for that, how the hell do you
Yeah.
make a documentary for that moment? Cool moment? Yeah, no. What how long is that documentary? Is
So
it
I was thinking maybe an E60, like a, 7-minute video on this. I think it's like a 30-minute show of
what
like
the
them.
hell could be 30 minutes about that?
I have no idea. Maybe they got
They
into
didn't even
Trey
win the
Turner's
World Series. Like if it
upbringing.
was the first wrinkle in the World Series MVP, sure.
Maybe they got into his NC State career with Carlos Rodon.
Like, okay. So and I'm sorry to take us off course there, but like that is wild to
Yeah,
me.
so a couple of my buddies say not everything needs a graphic, and like we get graphics about
Not
everything.
everything needs a graphic.
Not
Yeah.
everything needs a graphic. Not everything needs a documentary. Like Trey
No.
Turner
Or and
standing
not
O.
everything and certain things don't need 40 documentaries. The Red Sox coming back, very
Yeah,
cool.
there's another. I'm not going to watch it.
I heard it sucks, but like how many times are we going to do this thing?
Yeah.
But the thing with Judge is like this guy, him and Ohtani are the best hitters on the planet right now, and it's not particularly close. I think a standing O and reminding this guy that he is the MVP again. Like when he is locked in, there's nobody like him. We've talked about how his numbers are pretty much the closest thing we've seen to Barry Bonds. Since Barry Bonds, it, it's tough, but I think what stands out to me the most about this is it does really feel like a mental barrier because the approach is totally different. And I understand like when you're a big swinger, and it's going to be, a lot of home runs and not a lot else. You're going to have those streaks. And we've seen it even during the regular season when Judge isn't right. Like, it's a stretch where it can get a little ugly. But the consistency of it happening in the postseason, I think it's become a self-fulfilling prophecy for him. And now he's feeling like I got to swing my way out of it. Whereas, Aaron Judge is great now, I think, because he really picks his spots well and he has a great approach and he doesn't expand. And you look at the regular season, this guy ran a chase rate of 19%. And in particular, against fastballs, swung at a 47% clip, but an overall swing rate of 42%. So far in this postseason, and I think this is like a really important wrinkle of this whole thing. We got 50 plate appearances to work with now. His swing rate's up to 52%, but his swing rate on fastballs is up to 64%. That's nearly 20% higher on four-seam fastballs. So pitchers are feeling like they can get him to expand there. He's chasing. It's a small sample here, but he's seen 23 fastballs outside of the zone, and he has swung at 12 of them. That's a lot. That's a high, I mean, that's a 52% chase rate. Again, I know it's a relatively small sample here, but you're giving away ABs that way. So yeah, of course, then the whiff's going to be up. his chase rate overall is 32%. He's seen 107 pitches outside of the zone, and he's got a 32% chase rate as opposed to it normally being 19%. I mean, that is a significant jump. So to me, it's a guy that is trying to swing his way out of these struggles, and I think that's the worst thing you can do because it compounds things. And if you start attacking the fastball at a higher clip, right, you start trying to gear up for heat and be ready for it and expand more against heat. That's going to bleed into sliders too, because now you're trying to jump on a heater, you're swinging at those at a 64% clip, and then when you get that slider, you're going to wave at it and you're going to pull off of it, and sure enough he is whiffing like crazy on these sliders as well. I mean, he has a 39.5% whiff rate on these sliders, which,
Man,
again, to compare it to the regular season, it was 14.5%. So, I mean, he's tripling his whiff rate on sliders too because of how overzealous I think he's been with the fastballs.
man, and that does sound 100% mental. What do you think the fix is? Like, are you allowed to burn sage on an airplane? I don't think you are.
I, I
Maybe
don't
when he
know if
got
you are
back.
allowed to do that, but I think they
Um,
got to try something. I think it really is like so much easier said than done.
i-
Just resetting
is
like
it the
eight.
is it the Class A? How do you reset in 24, 48 hours? Is it the Class A thing minus the Instagram story where you look at all the awards in your living room?
If I were him, I would be watching my highlight reel of the entire year. Like,
I understand.
what are you going to change your swing? Like, there's not. It to me, it's
No,
fully
Shank would
approach
not be
driven.
okay with that. Let's be honest.
What?
Shank would not be okay with that.
Oh, no. Mr. Teach would not be okay with that. Maybe it's a late night session with Mr. Teacher Man. I don't know, but I do think that a lot of it is the approach. Maybe his timing's a little off. Yeah, he seems a little in between. That that makes sense to me. But you still don't have a shot if you're gonna expand the zone at a 12% increase from where you were before, and especially against sliders and fastballs. So I think it is just kind of watching what he did all year long. And I think being okay with going down looking here at points too, because I do think he's just trying to swing his way out of it and putting himself into disadvantage counts way too frequently. Where like I'd almost rather be a little bit more patient and see how things go. And I think that's an interesting wrinkle on it too. But
We
man, I mean, just not doing what he's currently doing would be a
right.
great start.
So counter is we know how fine the line is between patience and passiveness, and it feels like that line gets even thinner when you're in a slump like this, where he could go too far the other direction and say, "Well, I'm just not swinging unless I see something I love," and then he's not swinging at anything. And I would prefer if Aaron Judge, like, if the bat left his shoulder as opposed to not
For
leaving his
sure.
shoulder.
For sure. I just think, seeing such a stark jump in swing rate is just so wild to me to where
Yeah.
it's jumping, the overall swing rate jumping by 10% and the fastball swing rate jumping by 20. It's like maybe just try to cut it back a little bit. But yeah, it's wild to me. I've not really seen this much of a shift because it's like a pretty large sample now. Usually when a team's best hitter is this bad,
Yeah.
like they're not making it to the World Series. So now we're getting like, I mean, no, depending on how many games the series goes, we're gonna have like 70, 60 plate appearances, 65 plate appearances of Aaron Judge struggles in a single postseason. That's crazy.
So that kind of brings me to my game 3 thoughts. If you have anything else on Judge, like don't be afraid to just keep ripping it because that was a phenomenal info. But that brings me to my game 3 thought because there are very few tandems that can win a baseball game. There are tandems that can win a basketball game. I think there are tandems that can win a football game. There are very few two-player tandems that have nothing to do with what happens on the mound that can win a baseball game. Good news for the New York Yankees is they can actually win a baseball game on the backs of Giancarlo Stanton and Juan Soto. Those
Yeah.
guys are good enough to win a game in the World Series. Soto is a top 3 player in baseball at this point, 4 probably. I'd say Bobby Witt's the only guy, in that conversation with a Judge and a Shohei. But I mean, the way Giancarlo is swinging it right now, I feel like you need to operate without the assumption that Judge is going to do anything if you're the New York Yankees. And I'm sure they have, like even through the ALCS. Hell, I don't even know if that factors into baseball game planning whatsoever. I don't really think it does and whatever Judge gives you is just,
Yeah.
Aaron Judge. But
Unless you change the lineup.
yeah, and I don't think that they should be changing the lineup. I think that they should just look at Judge's spot and say, okay, the reliance here, unfortunately, is zero, and we want guys on base for Juan Soto and Giancarlo Stanton right now. And I think they can win a game like that.
Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, it just the other side of it though too is that I mean, for them to ultimately win this series, Judge is going to have to
He
get
needs
going.
to do
So it's
something.
just one of those things where it's like I don't even know if I mess around with the lineup. I don't know if I really mess around with anything, and just you just got to hope that it starts getting better. I will say like there's been some bad at bats and like you know through this postseason. I didn't feel like that last game. Like I know he punched 3 times.
Yeah.
If you look at the swings, like they don't look good. But if you look at the sequences that he got set up with, they just executed really well on his ABs. And I think pitchers have a little bit more confidence instead of like having, clenching a little bit when Judge steps up to the plate. You feel probably more confidence than you're ever going to feel against an Aaron Judge because it's like, oh, he's vulnerable right now. And I think pitchers are pitching with a little bit more confidence against him. And that's why these things end up becoming a self-fulfilling prophecy. Judge is pressing a little bit more. Pitchers feel like he's fine. There's finally a window to get this guy out.
Yeah.
And now those two things compound. And I mean, you look at the execution of some of these pitches, man, like
Right.
the Yamamoto 3-2 slider. How are you going to be ready for a 3-2 slider? You got to be
No.
ready for a fastball splitter, cutter, and the curveball. And the slider is the pitch that he throws like the fourth or fifth most. And
Yeah.
he pulls that out 3-2 with a base open. So like that one, tip your cap, to be honest. And it was a strike if he took it.
Right.
2-2. Then after Yamamoto had just gone slider, it's 2-2. Nobody's on base. And he goes splitter that starts on the inner half and then ends up being a ball like 5 inches in that he swings and misses. I can't fault him for that. And then I think the one that you can maybe fault him the most for is 1-2. Blake Trinan just rips a fucking Blake Trinan slider that just dives off the table. And maybe a Judge that's locked in spits on that, but that's one of the
Sure.
best pitchers in Major League Baseball. So, like, again, I know you can say, oh, well, yeah, but he's been doing this all postseason for sure. But I did feel like that last game was just a circumstantial like just
Right.
unfortunate thing where I mean, guys just executed really well. I don't think you could say the same the game before where Flaherty kind of hung one in a 1-2 count that I thought could have got hit. Then Judge chased a curveball that I think he could have laid off of, and then a fastball that he swings through that he probably should have hit. He was just late on 94.
Yeah.
That looked bad, but this last game, I think you could kind of just tip your cap and say, hey, they executed well on me.
That's the thing, man. I'm just going through like the play log for Aaron Judge and the pitchers that he's seen. Trinan, Yamamoto 3 times, Trinan, Gratterall, Flaherty 3 times, Gaddis, Clase, Bybee 3 times, Clase, Gaddis, Cade Smith, Sobrowski. Like he is facing a murderer's row of
As he's
pitching
slumping.
talent.
Yeah. So how do you get out of it? How do you get out of it when
You
he's
can't,
clearly
man. Like,
the swing and miss to Flaherty, the fastball in the outer half, to me was the biggest tell of a guy that's just not seeing it well.
for sure.
Where it looked like it was like almost in the catcher's glove and he swings. And I was
For
like, okay,
sure.
that's a guy that's trying to cover for both right now. He's trying to cover for the heater and the slider. And that was when I'm like, okay, something doesn't look right there.
Okay,
But I
now
didn't see
let me
that spill
say,
into the next game. I saw him just get, picked apart by good pitching.
let me say the plate appearance after that Flaherty fastball that you're talking about, he got 99 from Gratterall and he sent it back up to got 106.5. Like
Yeah.
this is just Judge is good. Like he's not performing right now. Don't get it twisted. But this guy is facing some of the best pitchers on the planet right now while he is mentally pressing. And that
Yeah.
is, I mean, a situation from hell. So I don't envy him. We'll wrap with game 3 here. This is Bueller and Clark Schmidt tonight in New York. I'm excited to see the Yankee Stadium environment there. I hope it's not a negative environment. That's like the one place that I'm worried that a World Series game might be like, are they going to hate the team when they come?
They're gonna boo him.
Right? Like I'm nervous a little bit. I do think that they're going to be fine, and I think that place is going to be a madhouse.
No, I think there's going to be a desperate level of like exciting cheer and like trying to will them to
I
to a
hope
win
so.
because I mean 3 overs 2-1 man like that's
It's
everything.
everything. It's everything. As weird as it sounds, I think Clark Schmidt is a really good guy to have on the mound in this situation because Clark Schmidt is never going to deviate from his plan. If this was Heel in game three, I'd be shitting myself. But it's
Yeah.
Clark Schmidt, and I feel a lot better about that.
I mean, dude, he's looked good. I mean, and you kind of know what you want to get from him and what you're expecting. I think is what you got in the two postseason starts, about 4 2/3, 2 runs.
Yeah.
If he gives you that, you got a chance here. The good news is that in the games that you lost, you burned Blake Trinan probably. I'd imagine I know he got a day off, but there's no way Blake Trinan's throwing, right? Like this is a guy coming off of shoulder surgery, and he threw
Yeah, he's at
33 pitches last time out. And then how many did he throw the time before that? 25.
20, yeah, 25 to
I mean,
27, I
he
think.
might go. I don't know. Like it was 22 and 33.
It's the World Series. So, like, part of me is just like, yeah, he's gonna do this on a day off.
But I mean, he might not look great then, and then he definitely wouldn't go the day after that. So I
Right.
mean, you got Trinan in a spot where like they're gonna have to go to somebody else. But the problem is you kind of lose some of that advantage because Yamamoto gave him 6 1/3. So
Yeah,
everybody else is pretty much available. Like I assume Kopech, it's what 24 pitches in the two appearances he made. Like
he's fine.
Vesia threw 1 pitch. So it is still gonna be all hands on deck. And that part is tough. I guess the good news is the Yankees didn't use Luke Weaver in that last one, and yeah, I
Yeah,
think that matters a ton considering that their bullpen falls off kind of quickly.
yeah,
So they'll have Weaver ready to definitely go more than an inning. But I think after the way Tim Hill threw last time out, he's going to be ready to go again. And it's just the only thing that makes me nervous is that this is probably two starters that you expect to be that five and dive type. And if that
yeah,
happens, it's still advantage Dodgers there. That's the hard part. And I think Walker has a much better chance of going deeper at this point.
yeah.
But that said, I do feel good about Clark Schmidt being able to give them a solid outing and give them a chance and pass the baton.
I am, bias aside, really excited to watch Walker pitch in this
Oh
one.
yeah.
Not only because it's in the World Series, and again, he's one of the best postseason pitchers that we have in Major League Baseball right now, but he just saw one go through his last time out against the Mets in the NLCS, and he's working with a 2-0 lead. Like, we're talking about a guy that could have supreme confidence right now. And you give him the opportunity to be a villain on the road in the World Series and go into attack mode from the jump. That's a scary Walker Buehler to deal with. And
Oh yeah.
that
I
should be
saw I
very
saw
exciting.
he was with the surgeon, who's a
Yeah.
famous
Shoe
like
guy, right?
custom shoes, custom cleats, guys. He's going to be dripped out there.
Yeah.
He's going to have some unreal cleats, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
He's going to be loving pitching there. I think, I mean, I know I don't want to speak for Walker, and we'll ask him this because I'm curious what his answer would be. But part of me, and he'll probably say I would rather pitch in front of the Dodger faithful. But just thinking about the way Walker is,
He
and
does kind of seem
how much
backwards
he
like that.
he talked about. You remember him talking about adrenaline and like, yeah, I'm hoping that when I get to the big league mound, that adrenaline will push me up an extra tick, and we've seen that it has. I
Yeah.
think he's getting more adrenaline in front of those nuts Yankees fans, yelling at him and saying stuff and whatever, than maybe he would at home, especially with the chance to put them down 3-0. Like you're gonna see a fired up Walker Buehler again, and I'm really excited to see what that looks like once again.
You might see his breath. 52 degrees at time of first pitch. A
Oh, and
little
he said
different
he
as the
likes
forward is.
throwing in the cold.
Yeah. I
So
mean, we could be seeing that Bueller that you remember from 2020, 2021. I still have that one fastball saved on my laptop. It's like 100 at 2,800 and it had 20 inches of vert. Like it's just the craziest fastball I've ever seen. And that was the 2020 World Series. So, I'm very excited for this one. You got to guess. I I like I like low scoring. It does kind of feel like Dodgers take it 3
it
nothing lead.
it feels like, I mean, it feels like everything's lining up for Walker to throw well, but there's that level of, okay, you got to go to New York, you got to beat the Yankees in New York, who
Yeah.
are clearly going to be desperate here, have a day to reset. I mean, in my mind, it's so hard to predict these games. So I always say, like, no matter what,
Right.
I'm gonna be wrong. But in my mind, it does feel like I'm with you, like that the Dodgers could take another here. But
In my
I
mind,
mean,
it's 3-2 Dodgers.
I think it's very possible that the Yankees do have, Nestor's going to be available again. See where they deploy him.
Yeah,
They have Weaver.
everybody. It's going to be all hands on deck in
It's
that
all
series.
hands on deck. This might as well be game seven in a lot of ways. I think, obviously, you're not, I mean, I know we keep getting force fed this Red Sox documentary, but like you're not coming back from 3-0.
Yeah, but they got
Uh,
chill game six, right? And anything can happen game seven.
yeah.
God,
You gotta get to game five and then game six and then
don't let
anything
us
can
win
happen.
tonight. God,
So
I'm so sick of it. I'm not going to watch the documentary. I'm sorry,
there's no
guys.
chance I
Love you.
watch. There's a 0% chance I watch it.
Dude, brutal.
And I think it's one of the cooler things ever. And then the 4 days in October or whatever, like that was an awesome one. Um, I yeah, I mean, I think my mind, on the surface goes towards the Dodgers, but I want to believe that the Yankees find a way to just pull this one out, and I want to believe that Judge getting back home and
Yeah.
maybe resetting a little bit, and hopefully the crowd gassing him up and
Hmm.
reminding him who he is. He comes up with a big swing, and the Yankees all hands on deck bullpen helps them.
Yep. All right. Every link you need is in the episode description. I have two hats sitting in the background. That's my official cop out now. I don't have to
Yeah.
wear it. Aram's not wearing any merch. That's a big win for me. Mine is more
Yes.
present than his. I don't think those pennants are available online, but we have a lot of other cool shit available
I
on
are they
social.
not? I think they might not be. Check. I'm not sure. Let us know.
I
I
have
think they're
no
cool
idea.
though.
Yeah, I have no clue, but they are pretty awesome.
By the
All
way,
right,
Nick Kurtz just got added to the Arizona Fall League roster for Mesa.
all your AFL call up, all your AFL what content is available on the call up.
Yes.
So go check that out as well. We also just broke down Arm's latest top 100, the final update of 2024. So if you want the skinny on all the newcomers and the biggest risers, go listen to that as well. And we'll talk to you after the game tomorrow.